I want to point out something before I make my very first video response on this channel. I'm not doing this for the sake of clout. There's a good chance that my video will be ignored by many people. I hardly have the time to make video responses. So if I end up becoming popular because of this video, it's because the person in question is so fucked up in the head that many people will come to me and ask more information on this person. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this would be a forum on kitty farms constantly mocking this person. I'll be advertising my video on Reddit and a few other third-party websites. In all honesty, I didn't think I would have to make this kind of video since not many people would be open about being a zoosexual on YouTube. It's really a big, bold move for you to come out like that because being attracted to animals is frowned upon. Many people wouldn't feel safe around someone that would want to fuck their dog. It's kind of like how pedophilia works. People will get up in arms to protect their children. And when it comes to zoosexuals, people will get up in arms to protect their dogs or cats. They don't feel safe around these kinds of people. Of course, the rabbit hole goes deeper than a simple video, for you see, I found a tweet that led to a confession from someone. I won't cover the entire article, but I will link it. Long story short, it turns out the person in question, Sappho, has minors in their Discord server, and in that server there happens to be, shocking to no one, animal porn in it. Now, I cannot say that this article here is either the truth or just some lie for someone for internet clout. Until I can prove for you that this is the truth, you'll have to take it with a grain of salt. What you don't have to take it with a grain of salt is the fact that this person is into animals. Now, given the circumstances here, I will only be responding to the first half of the video, and I'll be cutting out a few segments. Trust me when I say this, you won't be seeing anything out of context, mainly because the very first few minutes it's just a massive build-up being a zoosexual. The abridged version of the very first few minutes is that furries are very accepting when it comes to different people. If you're gay, you're welcome. Trans, you're welcome. Non-binary, gender fluid, asexual, all these kinds of people are welcome into the furry community. And so the idea of being attracted to animals should be welcome within the furry community. After all, being a zoosexual is being on par with the Stonewall riots and just being gay in the 60s. Zoosexuality, being on par with being gay. Remember when we mock Christians for saying that something like this will never be normalized and it's just a slippery slope? 8 years later, we owe them an apology. Let me tell you this right now. You cannot take being gay or being a lesbian and put it on the same boat as zoosexuality. In my video where I exposed the zoosexual community on Twitter, I used an article that debunks the justification of wanting to mate with animals. Trying to mate with an animal is animal abuse. And just being attracted to animals is already putting the animal's life in danger. These people who say that they are into animals usually own a dog, and from the looks of it, they end up doing some naughty things to the poor dog. It seems to be a common trope within the zoosexual community. Never compare zoosexual to gays. Anyone, regardless of their sexuality, will reject these kinds of people. People who practice Christianity will claim that this is a sin. Now that I got that out of the way, I will now respond. Trigger warning to those who are easily disturbed by disgusting acts.
And I want to clear the air and say that, for the record, I am a zoophile. You did not mishear that. I am a zoophile.
I want to point out that I had to skip 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get to this point. Her entire build-up was that long. And she's trying to act like she's just like one of the gays. I'm telling you, you won't be getting things out of context.
I do not have a thing for humans. I am more attracted to dogs, like German Shepherds.
Yikes. Say, if you own a German Shepherd, I suggest you train him to be more aggressive towards zoosexuals like this one.
If you are willing to stay and listen to my view and explanation, that is the point of this video. It is to show that there are ethical guidelines. It's not so black and white like many furries think that it is, and a full explanation as to the way that I think and the way that others think and why.
Now, I'm here for a different reason, to debunk what Sappho has to say, and you're here to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Now, I for one would love to see Sappho justify her attraction as she stated. But I'm sure, furry or not, people are going to agree with me when I say this. It is as black and white as everyone thinks it is. But please go on and give my audience more outrage flow to post on their social media pages.
Zoophilia is often very misunderstood, especially because of certain very terrible people and what you may have seen in the news. And someone that I will not mention, if you remember that situation with the Zoosadism leaks a few years back. Unfortunately, when people think of zoophiles, especially furries, that's the person that comes to mind. That is the situation that comes to mind.
Now, I have no idea about the whole Zoosadism thing a few years back, but I can assure you that no matter where you stand on this, many people who think Zoosexuals will think of animal abusers. People like her Flufflefer will do everything in their power to justify meeting with animals and eventually even meeting with minors. After all, pedophilia and zoophilia share the exact same arguments and beliefs. And instead of actually seeking help, they create their own safe space to justify their sexuality. There is no misunderstanding here.
And I'm talking about horrible abuses. And I'm not accusing a certain individual of anything here, but those leaks showed some truly horrendous people doing awful things to puppies, dead animals, animal gore, and other atrocities that I really wish would have been prosecuted, but unfortunately most could not, either by legal technicalities or so on. And it's a really sore thing for me because I would have liked to have seen justice in that case.
I feel like this is nothing more than a manipulation tactic to gain some form of sympathy, or at least to separate herself from animal abusers. Oh, I'm not like those people. Meanwhile, she's busy making out with the nearest German Shepherd. Just because you don't perform this action or calling out a greater evil doesn't mean we have to ignore what you do behind the curtains. Of course, I would love to see justice roll out, but I'm not going to turn a blind eye just because you see it as harmless.
I really would have liked to see that justice. But just because somebody was not charged or prosecuted does not mean that they were not guilty of what those videos showed and what those logs showed. And I will leave it at that. I couldn't imagine somebody doing that sort of shit to my animals, my mate, I can't imagine who would harm another living being in those ways.
Again, this is nothing more than a manipulation tactic to seem herself as a very sympathetic person. I would never do this to my dog. I could never support these kinds of action. I could just skip over some parts of it, but I really need people to see how Sappho is just trying so hard to put herself and any zoosexual at these sorts of people that just loves animals and will call out real animal abuse. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? This long video could be easily compressed into a mere 7 if the person in question wasn't trying to drag it out as long as she can. By the way, we still have roughly 10 minutes of her trying to justify her sexuality.
And to be 100% clear, I am not like that. Most of the zoo community is also not like that and utterly despises it. People who force animals into situations they don't want, physically and through other means, are completely deplorable and seen as rapists.
Then why is it that we see the complete opposite? Why is it that Kerfluffler, a well-known zoosexual, is supported by many zoosexuals? The man draws himself fucking a dog. Of course, I can't show you the image, but believe me, he's drawing comics of him meeting with animals. You, Sappho, might not support him, but many people who are zoosexuals do support him. And many others who I've seen from the likes of zoo pet owners end up meeting with their dogs or cats, mostly dogs. And of course, you'll deny it and say, that's not the case, but it's almost common practice within the zoosexual community.
Playing with an animal that is not sexually mature is like the equivalent of pedophilia, and it's treated as such.
More times than not, these zoosexuals will never count these behaviors. In fact, the most popular zoosexual also partake in role-playing with minors or having minors in their group and being lewd towards them. This isn't some over-exaggeration. All you need to do is just look what we have to say on Twitter.
I do not support those people, and they do not deserve the same title. They're fetishists and bestialists.
Apparently, there's a difference between bestiality and being a zoosexual, but let's be honest. Zoosexuality is just a precursor to bestiality. We've seen this time and time again on Twitter. It's only a matter of time before Sappho herself gets exposed for having sex or attempting to have sex with a German Shepherd. And if what that former Discord mod says is true, she's in support of Zoya and Now podcast. And you know what that means. It all comes full circle to Toggle the Rat. There's already tons of videos on Toggle, so I think it's safe to say where this is going.
I do not want them to be the face of the community, and they should not be the face of the community.
And who should be the face then? The Zoya and Now podcast? Toggle the Rat? Kerfluffler? It doesn't matter who's the face of the zoosexual community. We've seen what zoosexuals do to animals, and I, for one, is disgusted.
It's like literal Nazis considering themselves furries in the fandom.
Nazi furries. I might need to make a video on those type of people too. Why, you didn't know there were Nazi furries? Well, there they are.
You don't want them. We don't want them. We don't want that image to be what people think about. Ethical zoos are not like that. Zoophiles are among the most caring and loving people towards animals and their mates.
And here's the twist. Something tells me there's gonna be loads of lies.
We see animals as equals to humans, not as property or an object like in the eyes of the law and others.
Animals are not equal to humans. They can never be equals. Think about it. If a man kills someone else and we put them on trial, they get to speak for themselves and have a client and whatnot. But what about, for example, a dog? Can we put a dog on trial for murder or rape? No, animals don't have that comprehension of law and order. They look around and maybe take a shit on a chair, but that's about it. We can only treat them as their mentality allows them to be. They are lesser beings compared to humans.
Specifically, I and other ethical zoos follow what's called Zeta principles. Zeta being the Greek symbol, but also standing for Zoophile's engagement, for tolerance and acceptance.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I think I'm dying here.
So if you see that symbol on a furry, that's probably what they're referring to, or they're an ally towards that kind of cause.
And we treat them the same way as we treat pets, with humiliation.
And those principles are: bestow upon animals the same kindness one would wish bestowed upon oneself. Consider the well-being of an animal companion as important as one's own. Place the animal's will and well-being ahead of one's desires for sexual gratification. Teach those who seek knowledge about zoophilia and bestiality without promoting it.
I don't know why, but it sounds more like a cult than anything else. I don't know if there's a different branches of zoosexuality, but no matter how you twist it, it's still just one giant gateway with meeting with animals. The fact that there are ethics within the community is just one giant joke. Unless you're seeking help for your sexuality, these ethics can be easily thrown out the window. Just look at Kerfuffle's art.
Discourage the practice of bestiality in the presence of fetish seekers. Censor sexual exploitation of animals for the purpose of financial gain.
Yeah, as stated before in the article, she has feral porn on her Discord server with minors, no less. She already violated her own rules. That means that these so-called principles are a mere joke and serve as a way to indoctrinate people into thinking that they're just normal people.
And censor those who practice and promote animal sexual abuse. Zoophiles are not the same as bestialists and fetishists who do not follow those principles.
Feral porn. That is all.
Hypothetically speaking, I would see my partner or my mate as an equal to myself. Everything would be out of love, care, and affection for their wellness and well-being.
X it out.
It would not be to serve myself and my desires.
Notice that her avatar has her eyes closed for the majority of the video? She's acting like she has the freaking Jekyll shotting on there.
And a lot of people have issues with this sort of thing, which is understandable. I can understand the point of view that others have about my views.
So, why do I have the feeling that there's nothing but dishonesty here? Like, seriously, if you understand, why the hell would it be a good idea for you to come out as a zoosexual on YouTube of all platforms? Do you think people will be like, oh yeah, that's totally cool that you're a zoosexual and all? You know, come on in, the water's fine!
The biggest argument, of course, that comes up is about consent and what is that like, right? And they want to compare apples to oranges. They want to compare a grown, adult, sexually mature animal to like a toddler, basically.
And here's one of the most popular arguments that zoosexuals love to use. These people love saying, it's not the same because the animal is an adult while the baby is just the baby. To my response, the animal's understanding of what a human sees as consent is never on the same level. To a degree, their mentality is on par with a minor. A dog will never actively try to have sex with a human, and if they do, it's because they're trained to do so and nothing more.
Comparing apples to oranges. And in my opinion, it's a bad faith argument. I don't think you can compare a sexually mature animal to a not sexually mature human.
See what I mean? You can't compare them because they're different!
I think it's bad faith. But back to that hypothetical, and my view on it is that if my mate came up to me, loved me, and wanted something more in that moment, why would I deny them that need? I want to care for their well-being and help them feel good. At the same time, if the animal is uncomfortable or walks away, that's a no. That's a do not continue. That's a I do not consent.
This will never happen! Seriously, how will this play out? Woof, woof. What's that, boy? Oh, you want to have sex with me? Woof, woof. Come on, man! You know I can't do that. Okay, I'll let you fuck me. But only because you consented. Oh, yes! Give me that doggy dick!
I have a really close zoo friend that can explain more in a non-hypothetical way in the second half of this video. And this friend has a female German Shepherd mate and considers her to be the love of his life.
I don't even have a counter argument. This is just sad. The love of my life is a dog named Biscuit. He sure knew how to take care of my family. I fell in love with him when I first got him. He was saying things like, woof, woof, and oh, and he made me wet. I love it on how he plays with his chew toy, and I would one day hope he would treat me like his chew toy as well. The things I would do with that sexy beast. But I must restrain myself. I can't look at his doggy penis without getting just thinking of carrying his semen in my lungs. Some people think I'm sick in the head, but in reality, everyone else is just afraid of our love. I only want acceptance.
And why am I like this? Well, we can speculate on that.
And I already know why, because you're a sick fuck. I'm going to end the video right here. The near ending clip is her little backstory about how she was little and she would cuddle up with her 2 golden retrievers and she wouldn't do anything sexual with them. But we all know she did something with them. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have this conversation. So this is my video response, at least for the first half of the video. The other half I won't address unless done in the live stream. I might find a few people who want to share their stories and provide a platform for others to speak up. If there's more information on Sappho, feel free to DM me on Twitter or send a message to my email. Alright, so I have an update for you guys. Sappho has contacted Coyote Lovely on Instagram, and as far as I'm aware, she's trying to threaten Coyote. If you want to see the entire stream, there will be a link in the description. And I was there commenting on the stream, and oh boy, it was a shitfest. Anyway, there will most likely be another video on there, so keep a track on the events. I am Drama, and I will see you soon.